Hi, this is Ruth Pierce. I'm the relationship maximizer, and I like to help other people develop stronger relationships with themselves and with other people. And in this session, we're going to be talking about the second part or the second section of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. And if you remember, that started out with attending your own funeral. And what do you want said at your funeral? Who do you want people to say you were? And what did you want them to say you accomplished? And so that helps you do that first creation, which is planning it first before you do the physical, which is the second creation. That, in a nutshell, is what we talked about last week. And so now we're going to jump in and talk more about your personal mission statement and what would be involved in that. It focuses on several things. It focuses on your character, who you want to be, as far as what you want to be, what character traits do you want to have. It's going to focus on your contribution. What do you want to do? When you have finished your life here on earth, what do you want to have accomplished in that amount of time? And the same is your achievements. Contribution, achievements, some of that is the same, some of it's a little bit different. But what values or principles on which being and doing are based? And that's your achievements. You want to bring in who you are when you talk about both of those, your achievements and your contributions. Now, I want to say this too, because each individual is unique. A personal mission statement will reflect that uniqueness, both in content and form. And so there's no certain way that you need to write it or the way it should look. We're all going to be different, and that's okay. You're not going to get it right the first time either. It's going to be a draft, and then you're going to refine it and look at it again. Now, I think the basic stuff will stay there. Just like it's similar to the Constitution of the United States. And if you think about it, it's been in place now for a long time. I think we're talking almost, close to 250 years, if I can do the math right in my head. And yes, there's been 26 amendments during that time. 10 of them came right away. So you will make amendments to your personal mission statement. You'll refine it. But the basic mission statement will be there as your go-to to help you make decisions based on principles and what's valuable to you. And franklincovey.com does have a free mission statement builder, and I'll give you the link in the notes or somehow so that you can go and do that. So I'm in the section now called At the Center, if you're following along in the book. But when you're writing a personal mission statement, we must begin at the center of our circle of influence. Remember, the circle of influence is where you have influence. You have circle concerns that are out here. You don't want to focus there. You want to focus on your circle of influence. Our most basic paradigms are in our circle of influence, and it is the lens through which we see the world. It's where we deal with our visions and our values. And we want to continue to ask ourselves if we are valuing the correct principles. We desire to make sure that our paradigms are based on principles and reality. You don't want to get stuck in this is the way it's always been, because that's not always where you need to be. And as we work within that circle of influence, we become more self-aware. We use our imagination and our conscious, and we expand that circle of influence. And this is going back to when we talked, I think in the introduction even, but when we do that, we are in the highest leverage of that PC work. that protecting the golden goose that laid the golden eggs. And it will significantly impact effectiveness in every area of our lives. Now, let's talk a little bit about that PC, because you may have forgotten some of that. I know it's hard for me to remember it all, but there's a balance between the product and maintaining either the maintenance of the equipment or the people that produces that product. And both, well, all three are important. You don't want to be just focused on the machinery and not producing a product, or you don't want to be so focused on the people that you don't produce a product. But maintaining equipment and making sure that your people that are working on the product are okay are both very, very important. Then he brings up 4 things. We're not going to talk about them a lot, but I'm going to mention them. Whatever is at the center of your life will be your source of your security, your guidance, your wisdom, and your power. And each of those things are in a continuum. And if they're weak, then all of them are going to be weak. But you're going to see them grow as you develop each of them. You're going to start with that security, and that's your sense of worth, identity, and all that goes along with it. It's important to know that you love and value yourself. That's one of the themes that I have throughout everything I teach and coach and everything. It is important to love and value yourself. And then guidance. It's a source of your direction in life. Standards, principles, all of that play in. It guides you in your moment-by-moment decisions. And wisdom, as those first 2 grow, by the way, security and guidance, you're going to see your wisdom grow. Your perspective on life, the sense of balance, understanding how various parts and principles apply and relate to each other. This one includes judgment, discernment, and comprehension. And as you see wisdom taking over and growing and getting stronger and stronger, your power is going to grow. It is the capacity to act and the strength to accomplish something. And by the way, you're going to see that power grow first within yourself before you see it with other people. Now, we have a center. Each of us has a center, though we usually don't recognize it as such. Neither do we recognize the all-encompassing effects of that center on every aspect of our life. Now, before we go into your center, or what would be a good center to have, we're going to talk about some alternate centers. I'm not going to go into this in detail. There's a lot more in the book, but I'm going to mention them as possibilities and explain what I'm talking about. Because if you have as a center a spouse-centeredness, where marriage is your marriage is your most important, and every decision is based on how will your spouse react, then you can't always go with your values. And it creates some dynamics in there that aren't healthy. Now, when we get into the next section on this, as far as habit 4, 5, and 6, we're going to learn about dependence, independence, and interdependence. And I'm just going to mention it briefly here, because if you're in a spouse-centered center, that's a hard word to say, then you're in dependence on how your spouse is going to react. And it's not going to be healthy for you or for them. because you aren't basing your center on you and who you are. The next one that is a possibility is family-centered, where the lens on which you see everything is, how is the family going to react? It could be the kids. It could be your spouse too, but it's not just your spouse. It's, how are the kids going to react? What decision do I make based on how the kids are going to react? It could even be extended family. How are my parents going to react? How's my siblings going to act? Cousins, aunts, you name it. Depends on how close you are to them and how strong you are in your center. You could be seeing life through that lens. Money-centered. Are all your decisions based on, do I need to make money here? Now, I totally agree in Maslow's law, hierarchy of law of high, I can't remember how you say it. So I think most of you know what I'm talking about. And security is really important there before some other things can be realized. And money is part of that. But once you get that foundation of having enough money, are you always wanting more and more and more and more? And so that's the lens that you see everything. That's not going to create a healthy center for you either. The next one I want to talk about is work-centered. Are you so involved in the place where you work, your position that you work, that decisions are made based on that? Like if you need to work late one evening, are your relationships, your personal relationships going to suffer because you do that too much? That's a work-centered relationship. That's the lens you're seeing it through. Now, we all have to work late occasionally, and I'm not saying it's wrong. But if that's the lens that you see things through and you know that your personal relationships are suffering, then that's another story. Possession-centeredness, that's where you've always got to have the highest and the greatest. Pleasure-centered, always looking for the next high as far as doing something for pleasure. Now, we all need to have vacations. We all need to do things for pleasure. But this is to the extreme. And so that all your decisions are based from that lens. Friend, enemy centered. And I'm going to take friend first. I'm going to divide these up. And friend is where it's so important for you to be accepted in this one group that it's affecting your decisions that you make. And you don't want that lens. And the same can be said for an enemy. Maybe there's somebody at work or in an organization you had that you just cannot stand. And you're letting that person being there make decisions that you really don't want to make. Church-centeredness. This is an interesting one, and I want to tell you right now that Stephen Covey, I'm blanking out, but anyway, he was involved in a church setting. And so he knows kind of what he's talking about here. And it's where you get so involved in the organization that you forget who you are and you allow that to make decisions for you. And you don't base decisions on your personal relationship with God as much as what the church leaders would say. And the last one we're going to talk about as far as alternative centers that aren't necessarily healthy is self-centered. And this may be the hardest to understand. Selfishness violates the values of most people. But when you're self-centered, it becomes stagnant and it never gives. On the other hand, paying attention to the development of self with the concept of improving your ability to contribute to others is healthy. I like to say the more we love and value ourselves in a healthy way, it overflows to other people in healthy ways. So you do want to strengthen your internal core with those things we talked about: security, guidance, wisdom, and power. And this is another quote that I like. It's not in Stephen Covey. It's one that from things that I've done. But the degree in which you increase your love and value for yourself raises the thermostat so that all your other relationships can go. It shows them where they can go. If you do not have healthy love and value for yourself, you will not be able to give healthy love and value to others. And that's not that self-centered one. It's valuing yourself so that you can contribute to other people. So those are our alternative ones. It took a while, but it's all good. So I'm glad we did it. So now let's talk about identifying your center. And a lot of times we flip from one to the other. We may have this one as our strongest one, and then occasionally we'll flip to something else or something else. But as we fluctuate from one center to another, it's like a roller coaster ride. There's no consistent sense of direction, no persistent wisdom, no steady supply of sense of your personal, intrinsic worth and identity. The ideal is to create one clear center from which you consistently derive a high degree of security, guidance, wisdom, and power. This empowers your proactivity. Habit 1, be proactive, and gives congruency and harmony to every part of your life. By catering our lives on correct principles, we create a solid foundation for security, guidance, wisdom, and power. Those are the 4 that he puts together. Our security comes from knowing that correct principles do not change. You can depend on them. And I love this next one. Listen to it. Principles do not react to anything. They don't get mad and treat us differently. They're not out to get us. They cannot pave our way to shortcuts and quick fixes. They do not depend on the behavior of others, the environment, or the current fad for the validity. They do not die. They aren't here one day and gone the next. They cannot be destroyed by fire, earthquake, or theft. They are deep, fundamental truths, classic truths. And I have just a few more points that I want to put out here. The only real limitation of power is the natural consequence of the principles themselves. Remember back when we were talking about choosing? You can choose, but you can't choose your consequence. You can choose what you want, but you can't choose your consequence. Your consequence comes naturally from your choice. Principles always have a natural consequence attached to them. By centering on timeless, unchanging principles puts all the other centers in perspective. And what do I mean by that? If I'm centered in my own principle center that I've created with my values, yeah, I'm going to take into consideration my spouse and how my decision's going to affect them. I'm going to take into consideration how it's going to affect the rest of the family, how it's going to affect our money situation, and all those other ones. But I'm not going to let them rule my decision. I'm not going to let them act upon me. I'm going to act based on my principle center. If you look at things through the paradigm of correct principles, which is dramatically different from what you see through any other centered paradigm. I like this one too. One of the benefits of it, you are comfortable about your decision. Whatever you choose, you can focus on it and enjoy it. You do not second guess yourself. You are a confident decision maker. And because of all this, you will see things differently. Because you see things differently, you think differently, you act differently. Because you have a high degree of security, guidance, wisdom, and power that flows from a solid, unchanging core. You have the foundation of a highly productive and effective life. We're going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about writing and using your personal mission statement. As we go deeply within ourselves, as we understand and realign our basic paradigm to bring them in harmony with correct principles, we create both an effective, empowering center and a clear lens through which we can see the world. Viktor Frankl, I think that's how you say his name, says that we detect rather than invent our mission in life. Do you agree? Or do you just disagree with that? When we write and use our personal mission statement, we bring uniqueness to our world. As we seek to give verbal expression to the uniqueness, we are reminded of the importance of proactivity and working within our circle of influence. When we have that personal mission statement written, our meaning comes from within. Granted, we got to use it and make decisions based on it, not just write it and leave it in the desk, in the drawer. Personal responsibility or proactivity is fundamental to the first creation. When you do your personal mission statement, get to a place that you're making decisions for yourself. Don't let other people influence you. We talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. Habit 1 says you are the programmer. Habit 2 then says write the program. And until you accept the idea that you are responsible, that you are the programmer, you won't really invest in writing the program. I want to leave you with this thought. A mission statement is not something you write overnight, but as it gets refined, it becomes your constitution, the solid expression of your vision and your values. Writing and reviewing a mission statement changes you because it forces you to think through your principles deeply, carefully, and align your behaviors with your beliefs. That is the end of Habit 2 of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Effective